All right. Okay, sorry that took us a minute. We were having technical difficulties, as a lot of us are having these days with all this new stuff that we're trying to navigate. But welcome to the second Hill Country Happy Hour Live event. Thank you so much for joining us. We are doing these Happy Hour Lives. This is a pivot for THCW. We've never done anything like this, but in trying to connect all of our member wineries with all of the wine lovers across the Texas wine lovers across the US, we thought because you can't come to the tasting rooms, we could bring some of them to you this way. We will be doing these once a week, every Thursday at 6 o'clock, and it will always be a different set of panelists and a different topic about Texas wine and what's going on and what we're doing here. I'd like to introduce you, to our panel tonight. We have Julie Kuhlken from Pedernales Cellars, Karen Bonarrigo from Messina Winery, Gina Ross from Stonehouse Vineyard.
Hello.
Jennifer McInnis from Bending Branch Winery.
Hi.
So we hope that you guys will just sit back and relax and enjoy. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment in the comment section, and hopefully I can see those and bring those in to ask these ladies whatever you would like to ask. So just sit back and hopefully enjoy a glass of your favorite Hill Country wine while we just chat and connect. So I want to start off with asking all of you what you're drinking tonight. Jennifer, you're taking a sip, so as soon as you put that, we'll let you go first.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, I'm cheating a little bit. I'm drinking Malbec, which is actually High Plains. Sorry. It is Texas. It is Malbec from Newsom Vineyards, 2016 vintage from Bending Branch Winery, and it is quite lovely. And it's our current vintage right now. So I believe it's coming up in a wine club. Super dark fruit, kind of blackberries, a little brambly, and what I always love, and I feel like comes through in Newsom Vineyards grapes and wines, is that little bit of dustiness that just makes me think of the red top layer of dirt in Newsom Vineyards.
Is that available on your website right now?
It is on our website right now. I can send you that link.
Great. All right. Gina, what are you drinking?
Sure. I am drinking a Hill Country wine. I'm drinking our state wine. The lighting, if you can see it, that's our Claros. This is the one that we make entirely on site out in Spicewood. Grape varietals Norton, and I'd say it's sort of our flagship. I think it's what we're known for, and I'm drinking our 2017 vintage right now, and it's got a nice bright acidity. It's got darker fruit notes as well. It's a Native American grape that we planted back in 1999, that our owner Angela, also a woman in Texas wine, planted back in 1999, and primarily since it's Native American, it's resistant to a lot of diseases that could get some of the European grapes, so thought it was a good fit for the climate, and it's definitely done very well for us. So wouldn't be drinking anything else right now.
And Karen?
Sure. So, for Messina, so we have our Messina Sagrantino Reserva 2017. So it is Texas High Plains. So sorry. We do have a little bit of Sagrantino actually planted at the winery in Fredericksburg, though. So just a little bit. Most of that is Lenoir that goes into our port program. But we've got a little bit of Sagrantino there. Sagrantino is a grape varietal that Messina has just fallen in love with. And so we started planting it in 2011 and 12. And at this point, we are now the largest producer of Sagrantino in the United States. It's not a big varietal though, so don't get too excited, but it's been really neat to be able to see the experimentation at the different vineyard areas to see how things are going. We also have at the estate in Bryan, and we make an estate Sagrantino, and it's wildly different than the High Plains version as well. So we really enjoyed it. This is our 2017 vintage, which was a awesome year for reds. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about that more. There's some really beautiful 17 reds that are coming out now, and just a huge year, super ripe, a little bit higher alcohol. That's okay. But really quite delicious. And this is dark and tannic and just stunning.
Erin, how many acres do you guys have planted?
So it is, well, there's more going in right now. So it's a undisclosed total, but but we have about 6 vineyards total that have in it, including, well, 7 if you count the one in Hill Country, but there's only a few vines.
I remember the first time I'd ever tasted a Sagrantino, and I think it was a lot of people that had ever tasted it, was when you guys brought it to Symposium a couple years ago and got to share it on one of the winemakers panels, and people just loved it. So,
well, we ended up getting it kind of by accident. My in-laws, also Messina Hoff, founded by a woman and a man, of course. Everyone knows Paul, but my mother-in-law Meryl is the smart second half of that. But they fell in love with it in Italy and came back to the U.S. and called the nurseries and said, "Do you have Sagrantino anywhere?" And the nursery said, "No, there's nothing certified yet." And they said, "Okay, well, keep us posted if anything comes through and it gets certified. And we can look at experimenting with it." And sure enough, they called back a few months later, and one of the nurseries said, "So, funny story. So that." We were kind of cleaning up some rootstock that we thought was Primitivo, and then when we got to DNA testing, realized that it was actually Sagrantino. They said, so we still have to finish going through the trial with it, and we still need to clean up a few things, but other than that, we'll release it and certify it, and we'll keep you posted. And my father-in-law ended up saying, okay, we'll take everything. And so then he kind of spread it out to some of our longstanding growers, and they started experimenting with it and seeing how it would do, and we monitored it really closely, and it's grown from there. But it's become one of our fan favorites, and really phenomenal chemistry, which is really important in Texas.
And Julie, what are you drinking tonight while you're cooking gumbo?
Gumbo, yes. No, I'm drinking, this is we're drinking Tempranillo, of course. But anyway, I'm drinking, what the Tempranillo I'm drinking is our 2018 Texas Tempranillo, which we've been bottling over the last 2 days. We just finished midday today. And the Texas Tempranillo is our distribution Tempranillo. So many people who, like right now, are mostly seeing us in off-premise. This is what they're going to first encounter. The 2018 will be hitting the shelves in the next few months. There's still the 2017 out there. It is a blend of both High Plains and Hill Country fruit. 50% of what we grow in our estate in the Hill Country is Tempranillo, but that goes into a number of different Tempranillos we make. We make about 7 different ones every year. So anyway, this is a very nice edition of it. It's got, the characteristic cherry that you would expect on a Tempranillo. It's got plum. And then on the palate, it actually has a bit of some dark fruit, which you don't always get on Tempranillo, a little bit of blueberry and blackberry. But then also sort of some savory notes like sage and bay leaf. It'll go great with this gumbo, I'm predicting. But anyway, I also did want to say, in order to run a bottling line during these unusual times, we're stripped down to mostly managerial staff. And so 2 of the people on the bottling line today were my tasting room manager and my wine club manager, right? And we brought in one of our tasting room associates to help us just monitor the tasting room while they were doing that. And I really want to give a shout out to people's flexibility. This isn't what they were hired to do necessarily, but I want to give a shout out to Carrie Emerson and Marissa Contreras for being on the line. And then, of course, to Joanna Wiltzock, who is our co-winemaker with my brother Dave, who helped craft this wine. So it's a really nice edition of the Texas Tempranillo. So look forward to everybody getting it on their shelves.
Great. You have a killer team over there, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to share
Tempranillos y'all have, and I love every one of them.
She asked how many Tempranillos you guys have.
About 7 each vintage. It varies. We do the Hill Country Tempranillo, the High Plains Tempranillo, depending on the vintage. And then we have the Texas Tempranillo, the Tempranillo Reserve, the Family Reserve, the Kuhlken Vineyards Reserve, and then occasionally a single varietal Tempranillo as well. And so it varies this we make every vintage, right? This is a programmatic. So is the Tempranillo Reserve. And then the Kuhlken Vineyards Reserve always ends up being a Tempranillo because 50% of what we're working with is a Tempranillo. So it's Tempranillo based. So it's at the core of what we do. So.
I just want to share, I have not opened this because I meant to do it as we started, but all this technical difficulty stuff has stopped me from doing that, but I will be drinking this entire bottle because of that. And after I share this, I think I'm going to pause us on live and try to get us back live on the real page, and then we'll just pull this back in afterwards. But I decided to go with the Flat Creek Estate Pinot Grigio. I love all the Flat Creek wines, but this, especially for me tonight, talking about, women in the industry, and I'm going to ask you guys later how you all got started and all that. Flat Creek, Madeline Neighbor gave me my first job in Texas wine, and so I just wanted to honor her in that way by eventually opening this bottle.
Nice.
So I'm going to pause.
You guys have to, but
Back on the page, January.
Yeah, so hi, personal Facebook page. We are doing a Hill Country Live happy hour, and we're doing this weekly. We ran into some technical difficulties, and we went through about half of our live somewhere on Facebook, and just to circumvent that, we have gone live on my page and are sharing that to the THCW page. So I fully expect to have a whole pile of new friends.
Lucky you.
Yeah. Sorry friends who don't.
so we're on your personal page now, or we're on?
No, yeah, you're on my page. Yeah.
Hi, January's friends.
January's friends.
Okay, so for those of you watching on THCW page, we did go live for a little bit somewhere in Facebook, and we will be sharing the first part of our conversation, which, to recap really quickly, we have Julie Kuhlken from Pedernales Cellars, and Karen Bonarrigo from Messina Winery, Gina Ross from Stonehouse Vineyard, and Jennifer McInnis from Bending Branch Winery. We have just shared about the wines that we're drinking right now. So if you guys just want to really quickly just let us know that wine again. And like I said, we'll pull that video back in when we're done.
Who first?
Who first? Yeah.
So you can go first now.
Okay, so yes, I'm drinking the 2018 Texas Tempranillo, just bottled today.
Okay.
I'll go. I'm drinking our 2017 Estates Claros, Norton Reserve.
Okay, I have our Messina Sagrantino Reserva 2017 Texas High Plains, which we love.
I am drinking the 2016 Malbec Texas High Plains Newsom Vineyards from Bending Branch Winery.
And I opened a Flat Creek Pinot Grigio because Madeline at Flat Creek Estate gave me my first job in Texas wine, and I'm finally opening this because somehow we've gotten over some technical difficulties and are live, so now I can drink. Okay, ladies, let's start the real conversation. I just wanted to dig into your history and your background and how you got into Texas wine. Let's see, Jennifer, I know that you were mass communications at Texas State, and you were the food editor at San Antonio Express News. Can you kind of give us a background and how you got set up with Bending Branch?
Sure. So I have a communications background in journalism and worked for several newspapers in the state of Texas and for about 12 years, but gravitated toward writing about food and wine, and kind of have always loved to cook and drink wine, and have been going out to the Texas Hill Country since the early 90s, when there were just a handful of wineries on the trail, and I was barely old enough to drink with my parents. And it's been really interesting to watch and evolve. And then when I was in newspapers in San Antonio, I really felt like there was no one really covering what was happening in the Texas wine industry in terms of what it really took to make wine and grow grapes in Texas. And also, this was around 2009, 2010, when there was a budget shortfall in our state. And a lot of the funding was cut for the research and marketing and education for our industry. And so I really started digging into that and writing about it. And what I was most impressed about by this industry was there were a lot of wineries that just kind of took matters into their own hands and started promoting. And so started going to vineyards and wineries and getting behind the scenes. And people used to say to me all the time, when I retire, I want to have a winery or a vineyard. And I kept saying, that's not retirement. That's a lot of work. And so I started writing this story for about 2 years. I pitched to the paper that I could write a series about someone who was restoring a vineyard and just kind of the trials and tribulations of what it took to do that. And that's where I really started to get the bug, and it started to take over my life. And I had been a wine club member at Bending Branch. I live in San Antonio, and it's one of the closer wineries to San Antonio. And I had been a wine club member there for a couple of years, and they were looking for somebody, and they actually approached me at a time that I was ready to leave newspapers. And so that was 2015, which is hard to believe now that I left the newspaper and came to Bending Branch originally as director of marketing and sales. And about a year later, I became the general manager. And it's been just amazing. It's been really amazing to have written about and been able to have a glimpse inside of a lot of these wineries and their stories and the people behind them. And then now to be a part of the industry and to have an impact on it and to help the industry. And I kind of feel like all of the skills and all of that knowledge that I gained over that time is really put to better use in the industry than it ever was writing about the industry.
I remember you were a huge supporter when we were doing all of the grower field days and the fundraisers and stuff for A&M a couple of years ago. And I remember that's how we met. So it was really cool to see you come on with Bending Branch and get to work with you more.
Crazy, because a lot of the places that I had been to, a lot of the vineyards that I had been to as a reporter are vineyards that we contract with Bending Branch. And we also have a winery in California. Even some of those vineyards I had been part of. So I just kind of had all of this experience in retrospective, and it feels really good to put that to use.
All right, Karen, so and I forgot to mention, all of these ladies are either currently or have been on our THCW board. Jennifer is currently a member at large, but she was our association president in 2019. Karen was our association president. You would have thought that I already drank that whole bottle, right? She has really got me tonight. Karen was our association president in 2017, and currently the chief administrative officer. That is the title that I have for you, Karen, but we all know that you do all the things.
I do lots of things. Yeah, so my technical title at Messina Hoff is the Chief Administrative Officer. So I run HR and accounting and the marketing team, and I also do all the food and wine pairing programs at the winery as well. So I love food, I always have, and I really fell in love with wine and food pairings. And so, excuse me, there's a lot of nature outside. My allergies are killing me. But my normal everyday is making sure that everything's organized and we're, tip-top shape on everything within the winery. And Messina Hoff has 3 winery locations. So we have our main estate is in Bryan College Station, which is where we started over 40 years ago. And then our Hill Country location, Messina Hoff Hill Country, opened in 2011. And then we have a Grapevine location up outside of Dallas that we opened in 2014. And then we have a 4th location that's currently being built outside of Houston in Richmond, which is really exciting. So we've got a lot of moving pieces and a lot of hospitality that happens at all the locations. We have a restaurant operation, we have bed and breakfast operations, in addition to all the winemaking operations, which is quite expansive. So I'm trying to make sure everything stays together as much as possible. But I also am doing things. I was part of the THCW board for a while. And that was super fun, especially during legislative year. Very exciting, as Jennifer experienced, and Julie was a good mentor for that for me as well. And so now I'm slightly less involved with THCW. I'm still the co-chair of the marketing committee, and still in the legislative committee, but I'm doing more things here in Bryan College Station, which is where our main base is. And I'm on the CVB board here, which is taking up a fair amount of my time. And we're having to do pivoting there as well, in terms of hospitality and how to do things moving forward in this kind of post-COVID environment that we hopefully will be out of sooner rather than later.
All right, and Gina, so you are at Stonehouse. You have actually been on the board since 2017 as our secretary, and I don't know what we're gonna do when you leave this. You don't make a meeting, you just make Gina's notes, and they are the most extensive notes you have ever read in your life, and you feel like maybe you don't have to attend a meeting because you can just read those and know exactly what everyone said. It's awesome. We are all so grateful to you for that, because for Lindsay and I, we can go back and refer to that anytime and find anything that we need to. So that's really helpful for us. But at Stonehouse, a lot like Karen, you wear a lot of hats.
I do. It's true. Well, thank you very much for the compliment. First off, that's very nice. Yeah, it was the winding road that got me to wine. Actually, kind of like Jennifer, my background is journalism. That's what I studied at the University of Texas. And that was my first career. I've had a few careers now. That was my first career. I went into more sort of like business and economics journalism though. My first 2 years out of school, that's what I was doing, and actually moved abroad to do that. I was living in Amsterdam in the Netherlands for 2 years. And then I came back to the United States, and I got into finance for some reason. I started working for a Wall Street-based company here in Austin, doing primary research on the healthcare industry for hedge funds, which is as fascinating as it sounds. And so I did that for a couple years as well, and then the financial crisis hit, and it's been interesting going through this current situation and having lived through that situation as well and seeing some parallels and whatnot. But when the financial crisis hit, it sort of a lot, being in the financial, particularly in the investment world, was laid off along with most of my coworkers. I just sort of had to relook and re-examine some things, and living in Europe, interestingly enough, got me really into wine. I worked with there was a couple other Americans, but primarily my company was a bunch of Europeans, and you know how it is, you go out to dinner there and you spend 30 minutes picking which wine you're going to have, and then you spend another 3 hours drinking it, and it just goes nice and slow, and the wine is a key part of the meal, and really got me into wine. And so after the financial crisis, laid off, I thought maybe I'll go back to my writing roots, and I was doing sort of like independent contracting, just sort of the gig economy, if you will, just like getting hired where I could to write things for people. But I thought, I've got a mortgage, I've got, sort of certain responsibilities. And I started working for Stonehouse 9 years ago, just in the tasting room for a couple days a week, just as something to get me out of the house and to get me, having something to do for a couple of days a week. I just wanted to be in the wine world. It sounded like fun, which I think a lot of people get into wine just thinking, oh, this will be so fun, that sort of romantic ideal. And then I always joke that I showed too much initiative, and I just started asking too many questions and looking for different ways that I could help and different ways that I could get involved. And so since then, it's 9 years. And so one of the first things I started getting more involved with was just like our social media and our marketing and trying to build up our online presence. Got really into the event program, trying to work through the event program. And now I've since gone through the viticulture and enology program at Texas Tech, so I get to help in the vineyard and in the winery as well. We're a very small production, so one of the benefits of that is that you can be pretty much involved in every aspect of it if you want to be. So it's been quite the evolution for me.
Yeah, we used to get to go down until my kids got older and we got real busy with all the sports, but we used to get to go down and help harvest at Stonehouse, and my husband would go and help in the winery, and Gina's in there doing all the all the things. It's awesome.
Yep. Always appreciated Corey's help. He was immensely helpful.
And Julie, so you were our 2016 president. You were actually our very first, since I knew the history of THCW, female president. I'm not positive how it worked originally, so we'll actually find that out next week when we talk to a number of the THCW founders. But Julie was our first female president for THCW in 2016, and then has stayed with us and ran the legislative committee and the marketing committee, and just really been involved for a number of years. Julie is the co-owner at Pedernales, but she also has a PhD in philosophy, which is just one of those things that people don't know about. I think that people think that all of the wine industry just came from wine or were farmers. And so Julie would love to hear about your history and background.
Yeah, now when people ask why did I get in the wine industry, I have a really simple answer. It's my parents' fault.
Yeah.
So, no, I was actually living in California at the time when my father got early retirement. He wrote a book, as you do, then got tired of consulting, and then they wanted a second career. And they chose to go back to their roots. They did grow up on farms, both of my parents, at least part of their childhood. So for them moving back to the countryside and planting a vineyard was a logical thing to do to a degree. I remember, as I said, I was living in California, and my father came out. He went to UC Davis, was doing research on soils to try to figure out where to plant. And I remember sitting in a Marie Callender's and looking at these maps and thinking, what are you doing? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Anyway, in spite of the craziness, both David and I came and helped them plant. I recently discovered, actually, in going through my house, that I actually have the original slides from the first planting party. I hadn't seen them in like 25 years since we planted. Anyway, so my parents planted in 1995. They did not want a winery. They just wanted to grow grapes. They sold to the other wineries in the hill country, of which there were about 3 at the time, one of which is Bell Mountain, and we are in Bell Mountain AVA, which is the oldest AVA in Texas from 1986. Anyway, for the next decade, my parents grew grapes. I actually ended up in Europe after leaving California, got the PhD, started teaching. And in 2005, we moved back to the United States, and David had just finished his MBA. And that became sort of this impetus like, oh, maybe we should start a business together. Like, we're all in this transition, all our kids were young, we're all flexible, we're sitting there. David had been in tech, and he's like, we're not doing a tech startup, no tech startups, nothing. And so, yeah, I came around and finally like, well, we have this vineyard in the family, we might start a winery. Anyway, it seemed to be in the tea leaves, or I don't know, the Kool-Aid of the time, because we founded in 2006. And I even said it at the time, it's like, we're going to be as successful as the Texas wine industry is. And it just went like that. There's just winery after winery after winery. And when you look at the list of G permits in Gillespie County, we're like, I don't know, the 4th or 5th. But then it's just after that, it just accelerates and accelerates. And so anyway, the rest is history. I don't know. No, in 2007, we expanded the estate vineyard. And that's when we planted the Tempranillo. That was when we made the big bet there. I continued to teach actually as a professor up until 2012. So I didn't come, I did the labels. It was this crazy thing. I'd be sitting there grading papers and they're like, we need more labels. And I switched to Illustrator and I was doing labels, send the labels. And I was like, done, go back to my teaching. But anyway, in 2012, I came and started working full time at the winery. There was enough to do. I started mostly doing marketing. And then over time, I, sort of sorted out. People times ask me, what is it like to work with your brother? And I said, it's really good. You want to do different things. And so Dave, he runs the production. He makes the big decisions in the vineyard. And I am basically the front of the house. I have the tasting room. I have the wine club. On my business cards, though, it says I'm the resident wine philosopher, which I think is the necessary attitude toward being in the Texas wine industry, because it is a crazy business. So, it has grown so rapidly. It is a very different place to be than it was 5 years ago and certainly 10 years ago. And it's fascinating, but it is all also breathtaking. So anyway, in terms of, yes, as January very nicely said, I have withdrawn. You didn't emphasize that enough. I withdrawn.
Oh, no.
We're doing lots of things for Texas Hill Country Winery Association, but unfortunately I got sucked into doing things for Twiga. And so I'm now, this is Texas Wine and Grape Growers Association. I am on the board there and the head of their marketing committee. So I have not gone to sleep yet, and I haven't retired yet. but anyway, staying busy. And yeah, that's our story.
It's okay.
Well,
We'll check you back in over here when your term over there is done.
Yeah. That's when you thought you were out.
Bring you back in.
I did want to add that David, Julie's brother, currently is our president of the Texas Hill Country Winery. Of course, he was on this happy hour last week, but he's been great on the board.
Great. I'm glad to hear it.
Okay, in January, I realized that I didn't explain at all how I got to Texas wine in my explanation. Sorry. So it's been a long week. So my background is legal, actually. So I went to school for political science and history, and then ended up working for law firms all through high school, college, and then after college. And I met my husband when I was in Washington, D.C., where I went to school. And my husband, Paul Bonarrigo, is the son of Paul and Merrill Bonarrigo, who started Messina Hoff. So my husband Paul was at the Naval Academy and then was in the Marine Corps, and so we were traveling with the Marine Corps for about 5 years before we actually came back down to Texas. So I was a litigation paralegal that whole time in between, and so when we got back down to Texas to kind of settle back in after he was done active duty, just so that we could transition the family business officially, then I said, well, I'm really good at paperwork, and so that's kind of where I started. With the winery, as I said, I can keep things really organized, and I like that. And so we started in HR, and then it kind of evolved from there as we started transitioning with my in-laws over it was about a 5-year period for transition. But at this point, we've officially been back now for over a decade now. So we came back in 2010 and officially transitioned everything in about 2013. And by 2015, we were officially transitioned. So it's been exciting, and there's a lot of growth still happening, and hopefully we'll still keep it together until our kids can take over. I know there's a lot of family businesses here.
I love this story about you guys, because I was trying to think of other Texas wineries that have successfully transitioned from one generation to the next. And I can't think of another one. I mean, there may be a smaller one out there, but I think that that's something that you guys have done very successfully, and it's a credit to your organization, and it's promising for the future of the Texas wine industry.
Right. Well, it is. I mean, it's a big deal. I know when we first came back, people would ask us, they're like, so what are you doing and how are you doing that? Because there's still families that are in transition right now into that second generation, which is awesome to be able to see the industry evolve into that. But there's like no secret formula to it. So we just said, everyone has to be really brutally honest the entire time. And that can be really painful, but you have to kind of know everybody's heart and know where it is you're trying to go. And also know that you're probably not going to be pointing in the same direction the whole time. And I think that's with any family business. I'm sure Julie and Dave had that all the time, where you have the same heart as to what you want to do ultimately, but you want to get there 2 different ways. And so there's a lot of conversations and that have to happen, but a lot of love and understanding that has to go all around that to be able to make sure it transitions well. And luckily, Paul and I get along great, being able to work together. So we always joke, if you can do some sort of like household improvement, like redo your kitchen or like build a patio together as a married couple, then you can probably work together. But if you can't do those projects, I would highly not recommend
Working at home.
together. I think that a lot of couples are learning that if they can homeschool their kids
You're
during this time, they can do anything together.
a lot of truth there.
It's a huge test for a lot of us. Yeah. So we mentioned Twiga, that Julie is now the marketing chair there, and I know that a lot of you have held different roles within the industry. Twiga, I know that Julie has her level 3 WSET, and then I know that Karen, you just passed a certification.
I have my level 2 WSET, and then we did for kind of funsies, did the Quartermaster Sommelier's intro course just to see the other side of the coin. WSET makes a little bit more sense for us since it's kind of all encompassing with kind of more viticulture and background and things like that. So we encourage our team to participate in that, and we hosted a kind of class for the local area, and then for our staff where we had I think 31 of our team either pass level 1 or level 2 WSET, and so but the Quartermaster Sommeliers is a phenomenal program, and so there were a couple of us that decided that since it was coming to College Station that we would sit in and see that side of it, and it's really fascinating. So I have my intro in that. It's nothing to write home about, but I do have the certificate.
I actually did the intro also first. Partially because it's the association with TechSom. You saw it so many times, and so you wanted to go and see. And obviously the big difference is the emphasis on service,
Right.
That you get at the Quartermaster Sommeliers. And it is humbling, right? How much emphasis is to get that right and get hospitality right. And I know that made a difference in how I thought about the industry, that really what we're doing in the tasting room, particularly, but also in the wine club, is hospitality first and foremost. The wine is a means to achieving it. And so I think you do learn a lot from the court as well. So.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, I would do second level if I had time right now. But I think once you get to kind of your advanced level in that, then you really have to be on a restaurant floor to understand it a little bit more. So that becomes a little bit more challenging. We have the luxury of knowing our portfolios really inside and out, and understanding the industry. But if we're not serving, wines from Bordeaux on a regular basis, to be able to, have that flow very naturally. So that becomes a little bit more challenging, but still really interesting.
I learned all about hospitality from my mom when she ran our winery. And so for me, that's where that came from. But I remember my first year at TechSom, I was sitting next to Jennifer Beckman, and I was blown away. I'd never really been introduced to that side of the industry, and I was blown away by what they could do and how they could smell and taste these wines and tell you all the things. And I was floored. And so by the end of the second day, I tried to sit next to her because she was really my only comfort being in there because she knew me. And she looked over at my notes, and it was, if I liked a wine, it was like a little smiley face. And
you're talking about this. Like,
it was a flat line, but if I really liked it, it was a smiley face with a heart around it.
Nice.
As far into that world as I can get. I can't do anymore. It is so much work.
Still exists to this day, because I was sitting next to it at TechSom this year. It's still her.
It is.
I'm drinking water from my TechSom cup actually right now. It's a handy vessel. So.
And just to say, for those who don't know, we keep talking about TechSom. To say what it is. TechSom is probably one of the largest, wine education conferences in the world. It's run by 2 master sommeliers, and they bring in people from all over the world to educate sommeliers on wine. The last conference had 1,300 participants. Does that sound about correct? Yeah, it's in that scale. It's been held for many, many years at the Four Seasons in Las Colinas in Dallas. And just partially because one of the founders, James Tidwell, actually works there and can convince the hotel to host all these these wine people at the same time. So it's a great conference for wine education. It's a great professional conference. Very, very informative.
And I would highly recommend, that is some of the best education that we get throughout the year, just to be able to be exposed to different wines. And same thing, because it's not something that we're doing on a daily basis. You have to try really hard to be able to explore wine outside of your own portfolio and outside of Texas wine sometimes, but that helps bring perspective and I think appreciation for the different ways that you can go about it, go about the winemaking process or go about viticulture practices. And I always joke sitting in like German Riesling classes, they're like, oh, the pH high at 3.3, and we just chuckle in the back, kind of thing. If I had that problem, kind of. So it gives a perspective and appreciation for all sorts of elements of what it is that we do on a daily basis.
And that's a lead into just kind of really quickly talk about your daily schedule now. I mean, things have changed not for me, because I've been working at home for 10 years. So
Your kids are there now all the time.
yeah, but it's the same as summer. It's the same as summer. It's awesome. So for me, I was like, I got this. But everybody else, I mean, and I was thinking about this earlier today for so many other industries. I'm gonna be honest, first time I put on makeup in 3 weeks, which has been amazing. So when I was doing that today, I was like, oh, this makeup company, I wonder what they're doing. You know, we're so involved in what the wineries are doing, what the tasting rooms are doing, and how we're all handling this. I mean, I know what, my husband's, company is doing, but other than that, I'm not really in touch with what this makeup company is doing. I don't follow them, but I just thought, like, I think that overall we have handled this really well as an industry. I mean, you guys came out with curbside and free delivery and shipping deals and pickup and virtual tastings, and now we all get to do these like fun networking things and share our stories. I mean, I feel like this industry is here in Texas, and I've seen a number of others across the nation, really roll out with these new platforms and trying to figure this out. How are you guys doing in all of this? That change, because you guys are used to being in the tasting room and at your office all day, all the time.
Who do you want to answer first?
Yeah, who do you?
Yeah, who pick a name?
Jennifer, let's go with Jennifer.
Okay. I mean, for me, it's kind of been like a reversion to news, breaking news. We're going to pivot and move very quickly. But also being on the board and having to, address what information we need to be providing to the organization association as a whole. So and pretty immediately we closed our tasting room. Our owner, Dr. Bob Young, he's got a whole history in medicine, in public health, and a master's degree in public health. And specifically, he's in epidemiology and has training in this. And so really, we've leaned on him. He's been very proactive from the beginning about the additional measures that we would be taking in the tasting rooms and in the cellar. And so we've closed our tasting rooms, and like a lot of other people, we're doing curbside. Now we're doing curbside 7 days a week. We're doing also some deliveries in a 50-mile radius. But we decided, we had an April wine club. Like a lot of us, this is springtime. This is when we have a lot of visitors usually coming to our tasting rooms. And, it's THCW. We have the Wine and Wildflower Passport program. And so we had an April club coming up, and 75% of those people typically come out to the winery to pick up. We have a big release party, and we all get together. We have music and food and all of these things. And so we decided to ship 100% of that and cover that cost. And we felt like that was the right thing to do, because our members are who support us, and who I think I can speak for all of us, that our members are and our fans and the people who love us, those are the people that right now are like raising the flag and telling everybody else they should be drinking Texas wine and telling their friends to order. And so a lot of it, we all can ship direct to door to everyone's doors. And we're just we're assessing everything on a week-to-week basis, and our schedule may change from 1 week to the next, but production, like Julie mentioned, production continues. We haven't done any bottling yet. We did suspend our bottling, but today we have an ozone machine, and so we have a schedule that we run the ozone in every work area every single week, so that it neutralizes the virus. And a lot of things it neutralizes, but gloves and masks, and we ordered face masks today, so that when we do go back to bottling, we'll only have 4 people, and they'll be socially distanced and stay safely distanced, and wearing masks and even face shields and gloves when they're doing those things, because it's something that we're really conscious about. But we're doing a lot of virtual tastings like this too. We're doing a Friday weekly happy hour, And those are centered around kind of events that we typically would have already been doing, like our wine club release, or typically we have a big Derby party, you know, the first weekend of May, and Derby's been moved to September. So we'll do that in September, but we'll have a Derby theme for sure on May 2nd. But it's been odd to be working so distance and still running a team, you know, I live in San Antonio and the winery is 50 minutes away. And so we have daily video conferences, and but at the same time, all of these video happy hours that we're doing, like this one right now, and the Texas Wine Twitter Tuesdays, if anybody's on Twitter, we're doing a chat there, and our virtual happy hour, it has been a different way to connect with people, and it's been a more intimate way to connect with people. And so that has been nice, but it's a challenge, and every day is a new day.
I just want to say, Lori just commented on, I think I'm looking at, yep, my Facebook page, and Lori Moffett just said that she asked if you're all shipping wine these days, but she said she just got her shipment of Frizzante from Binning Branch in 2 days. So that's
nice.
Lori, yeah. Typically it's
Love that ground ship.
yeah, a lot of times, because we are using a fulfillment house, and so if you order online, typically it's next day or 2 days, and we can all go through our shipping deals, but I think ours now is if you order $100, the shipping is included in that, and we're all doing promotions at about, you know, different happy hours we're doing from week to week, so you can order those wines, and yes, but we are shipping. We're all shipping.
Yeah, which is great.
Like more than 30 states, 35 plus states.
And you guys don't have to get into the details, because we do have a consumer resource that is linked on the THCW Facebook page and on the website, which is texaswinetrail.com. So we put together a resource page that lists all of our member wineries and their curbside, delivery, pickup, shipping deals, wine deals, virtual tastings and live events, and anything else. And then it also lists all of their Facebook pages, because that's where a lot of wineries are doing those updates on a regular basis. So if you want details on any of that stuff, you can go there. Really quickly, a huge shout out to Lindsay, who we all get to work with every day, who's been a huge help in putting all of that stuff together and helping us spread the news on all this. So Gina, how's it going over there for you?
us?
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about it, like how when Jennifer was speaking, it's really, there's sort of two aspects, I think, right? We were talking about sort of how it's almost sort of refreshing how the production has just sort of continued to go on almost. For me, primarily, it's looking at the vineyard and how, you know, these vines, they don't know. They're just going to keep growing. They need to be tended. They need to be thinned. They need to be sprayed. They need to be, you know, they're just sort of growing as normal. And there's some relief or some sort of like a chance to take a deep breath or something, that sort of all this craziness is going on in the world. But here, in this vineyard that we have, it doesn't know. It's almost like I wish to be a vine right now, just sort of growing along, no care in the world. So that's, in a way, it's been sort of comforting to just sort of know that is continuing on. I mean, there's precautions to be taken, but for the most part, the production is sort of just, you know, the spring is here and things are growing, and that needs to move forward. And it's been sort of a relief from all of this. And then on the other side, I think, everyone will probably echo the same. We're offering discounted shipping, sort of, you know, tiered discounts based on purchase amounts. We're there for our normal hours for people to come by and pick up, you know, curbside, and we're doing delivery for people in our area, virtual tastings as well. And it's been sort of a lesson in, I've been trying to just consume as much information on digital marketing as I can, and sort of this sort of pivot that everybody's talking about, how you're going from, all of our marketing was driven towards getting people to come to us, and now trying to pivot that marketing to almost becoming an e-commerce business sort of overnight. Like, how can we drive people to our websites and to our, you know, to social media, and get them, you know, still connected to us, even though they're distanced from us. So that's been the biggest sort of pivot and transition, I think, is, you know, how to still bring our experience to them, even though we can't bring them to our experience anymore temporarily. But it's been, yeah, it's been almost sort of, you would think working from home and whatnot, maybe you get to take a breath every once in a while, but no, it's been almost sort of full steam ahead, just as much work, just as much to do. Yeah, just sort of, yeah, just keeping going, and with the hope that all of this is just temporary and it's right around the corner, and then the normal will be here before we know it. But we're hanging in, we're keeping going, we're strong.
Did you guys think when she said consume, like she was going to pause and say consume as much?
Right.
Possible?
Would have been fine either way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Been consuming a lot. Yeah.
And Karen, how about you?
So, well, I mean, just same with everyone else. I mean, it's been a kind of interesting adventure in psychologically being able to keep your team together, but being able to still connect with customers, but in a way in which you can't actually see each other face to face in a lot of ways. And so it's given us a chance to be able to think about hospitality on a whole other level. We already try to think about it from multiple different angles. And in 3 different locations, there's different needs at each of our winery locations that we have. And each of them was in different regulations at different times. So for the first, whatever that was, 2 weeks or so, every day, almost every 4 hours or so, we were having to change something because there was either a different restriction or there was a different protocol that was coming down, or it made sense for our team to be able to shift to a different model to be able to make sure that we could take care of them and our customers. But at the same time, hopefully try to keep the doors open as long as possible to be able to, figuratively, to be able to make sure that we could take care of everybody. We have a fairly large team, and so that was important to be able to make sure we could think from multiple different angles. So things like the bed and breakfasts that we have, those closed fairly early. We didn't need to have customers coming in for that. We have a restaurant that's on our property in Bryan, and so we have things like takeout for that, but that was a different model. We never used to do delivery or takeout in the restaurant. It was all, you would come in and come to the winery and sit down. And so we had to rethink that process pretty quickly, and how would that look and how would we model. And it gave us an opportunity to be able to actually band together with a number of different local businesses in the areas that we've been in, especially in Bryan College Station. We have a lot of hotels and restaurants that actually kind of geared together to join in on a task force with the 2 cities to be able to make sure that everybody was being understood as to how they needed to change and shift and take care of each other, frankly, to be able to make sure that everybody could come out of this at the end, which was nice to be able to see, and it created relationships that probably weren't there before. So I think that's a blessing. And then with our customers, we have a really great, loyal customer base here in Texas. I think almost every winery would say that we have some of the best fans in the world. And they've really come out of the woodwork to be able to make sure that they take care of us just as much as we try to take care of them over the years. And so that's been great to be able to see. And we've been trying to think creatively as to how we can continue to connect with them. So we have things like we have a happy hour that we normally do with our members on Sunday. And so we moved that online almost right away to a Zoom. And that was hilarious to have all of our, have a bunch of members be on the Zoom with us and trying to show off who did what. And we still have to figure out how we mute everybody sometimes. But for the most part, it's been great to be able to, do exactly what we would have been doing anyway, were we face to face. And we have some of our members that always go to dinner at the restaurant together. And so they decided they would just drive to the restaurant at the same time for pickup. And then they wave to each other in the parking lot, and then they go home. And so it's not the same, but they're trying to make it seem similar. And so we're trying to feed off of that and make sure we take care of everybody until we can get to the end of it. Personally, I have 2 kids at home. So we spend a lot of time together, and I have consumed a lot of knowledge as well. And so, but they're elementary school age, and so they're old enough to be able to read and play games with each other, which is helpful. But that has been interesting to be able to handle trying to manage a full business and also try to run kids and schoolwork and and make sure no one kills each other at the end of it, which is really the important part. We're trying to make it to Easter, and then we're going to try to make it to next week, just 1 week at a time. But
Yeah.
the Disney Plus subscription is really
Yeah.
And Julie, first, before you tell us about how your regular day-to-day is going, we need to know how the gumbo's coming out.
Yeah, really. How's it going?
On really low simmer right now. I have to add the smoked chicken, so I'm going to do that after this is over.
I wish we could smell it.
Yeah.
15 minutes ago, so I'm hopeful.
Jealous.
So yeah, no, obviously, the multitasking of motherhood and work is clearly, I mean, and parenthood and work, I should say, more generally, is, I mean, it's taxing a lot of people. You do find yourself sort of digging deep to say, okay, I have to be able to put you on hold right now, as I have to be able to turn to this, and that is, it's a skill set. My kids are a little older; they're teenagers, so they have enough assignments. They're very self-directed, so I'm not really homeschooling them, but it's emotionally difficult for them to be separated from their peers this much. It's just not normal for teenagers to spend as much time with their mom, honestly speaking. So that's a challenge at home. I am going into the winery at this point. I had 2 weeks. I was actually in Europe up to March 14th. And was one of those very unfortunate people who had to come through immigration the first day those restrictions came into effect.
How long did that take?
The second plane from Europe was those who came in on the 5th and 6th plane. I even waited for 2 hours. People came on the 5th and 6th plane, and it was crazy. This was Chicago. This was the entrance hall, the immigration hall. It holds about 1,000 people. It was absolutely packed, and there was a line of people to get in. Now, in the COVID situation, was this the right way to be handling this? There was no
pictures, and I thought of you.
Yeah.
The guys were actually saying no pictures, no social media, and of course, everyone under 35 was just
Right.
So yes, it was on social media.
Oh gosh.
Anyway, but I did self-isolate for 2 weeks and did not develop COVID, so apparently I didn't get it in Chicago. Anyway, that was rough, being absolutely at home, basically with the girls all the time. Although it was also nice, as Karen points out. I mean, you have some different time with your kids. You don't expect this in April. March and April, they're usually so busy. I'm running from activity to activity. So that has actually been a positive. And I think that is one of the things, is just find the silver linings. I think Gina's right. Looking at the vineyard is so wonderful. I've gone out and taken many more pictures than I would normally, gone out, helped out. We had bottling, looking at production, that all goes on like normal, and all those things. You're like, yeah, it is going to go back to normal at some point, even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes. So the other things we've done, I think, like Karen, you're trying to find new ways to connect with people. And one of the things that we did, okay, I gotta say it was a brilliant idea on my part, was actually we're running out of room in our library. We didn't have room for all our library wines. And I was like, okay, we've been looking for, we need to find a way to clear some of this out so we can put more wines in there. And so we've been releasing library wines every Wednesday. And these wines that we have a case or two, usually we were targeting ones with 2 cases. And so we released yesterday, and they usually sell out within 24 hours. We had a 2011 Newsom Vineyards Reserve wine. It was tasting fantastic. We did open one of those to test to make sure it was okay.
Sure. Sure.
Really.
Doing very well.
The responsibility that we take.
Yeah.
And
You have
everyone.
to go.
So anyway, that's been a really nice way to say, hey, these, particularly to wine club members, they remember some of these wines, and suddenly it's back in their lives, and they can try to get a bottle. And so I planned it out. We have at least 3 more weeks of that, and then I'm hoping we'll be open again. So, and then the other thing we're doing is we've been wanting to do some renovations to the tasting room, because as I said, we opened our tasting room in 2008, and 12 years, it's looking time to renovate, right? And our cousin happens to be an interior decorator, and she came out in the fall and she made a bunch of suggestions. But some of them you're like, we can't do this and have the tasting room open. And about a week ago, Dave's like, shoot, we're closed for a month. We know it. And so he got, and he just started going through walls. And so anyway, We have a list of things we're going to try to do over the next, 3.5 weeks while we can just, create sawdust storms and, everything inside there, and it doesn't make any difference to anyone. We'll see how much we can get done, but it isn't, again, it's an opportunity to do something we wouldn't have been doing. I mean, in April? No.
For sure. Oh my God. I know.
So,
One of my favorite Julie phrases is nothing else in April. No more events in April. Because it's like everywhere else go that way. Like normally we're in like festival after festival after festival, and our tastings are packed, and the wildflowers are blooming, and yeah.
and I have to say, personally, to have this different April, I'll just step back in that. This has been fantastic. I have to say, having been like mentally prepared for like this endless schedule, and suddenly it's like gone overnight, and you're like, oh, that made me think how I'm living my life and doing things, because it is a nice breather in this weird way. I know that the summer and the fall are going to be hell because all these things. But right now I'm like, I can go look at the wildflowers. I can go Willow City Loop, right? Because I have a little more time than I definitely would normally this time of year. So there's always something.
I was looking at our calendar from 4 Tuesdays ago, and it was somebody had a doctor's appointment, and then somebody had baseball practice, and then cheer tryout, something or other, and then soccer practice, and then baseball something after that. And it was like I was in my car nonstop. And then I compared it to our Tuesday schedule from this week, and it was like Zoom meeting, Zoom meeting, Zoom meeting. We're done. It was amazing.
Yep.
It was amazing. I just want to thank all of you for joining us, and we have gone over time, but I expected that because I love hearing your stories and connecting where you guys started, and then through what's happening now. And I know that we're all dealing with so much of it on the same level. I just want to throw out there, I think Jennifer mentioned the Wine and Wildflower Journey. We did move that to July 31st through August 16th. It'll be the wine journey, which will be a great time to come out and see what has been happening in the vineyard over these last few weeks, and kind of get a glimpse of that hill country harvest. Karen was talking about the Messina Hoff Manor House and the B&Bs, and I just those are our partners in wine tourism across the hill country. And I know that some of our wineries have their own, but there are others that stand alone, and they are our longtime partners, and we just want to encourage you guys to continue, of course, to support our wineries. And like I said, buy the wine and join us on these and virtual tastings and whatnot. But also that those bed and breakfasts are going to be there, and they're going to need you. And so please, if you possibly can, start looking at making those reservations for the fall. If you haven't already, if you're not already booked to a festival every weekend.
Like visit everything. I think everybody in hospitality is kind of in the same boat, and it's a rough one. And so wineries have the privilege of being able to pivot pretty decently. And especially if you're in wholesale, there's a lifeboat there to a certain degree because retail is doing great, but on-premise is not. So those restaurant partners that have been promoting Texas wine and giving people that first chance to be able to try it, they're going to need help after this as well. So whenever everybody feels safe again, don't put yourself in harm's way, but at the same time, when everyone feels safe again, please make sure you support those partners because they've been great to us. And I'm going back to a restaurant. I can tell you that much as soon as humanly possible.
I cannot wait.
No more cooking. Yeah.
I can't wait.
No, right now you can buy gift cards and packages.
Yes.
That can be redeemed later, and that's a way to help right now. Everybody's going to need support at the end, but everybody needs support right now too, and that's a great way to gift something or support.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like I said, those are our partners in wine tourism, and we couldn't do what we get to do without them. So we just encourage you to to support them as much as you can as well. We have 2 more real quick topics. I just want to thank you again for joining us. Our Hill Country Happy Hour next week will be live on the THCW Facebook page, not my personal page. Hi, friends. And so next week, yes. Next week, we have a group of THCW founders, which I'm really excited about. Last year, we got to celebrate our 20th anniversary. Jennifer was our president during that time, and we really got to dig into how this association started and how it grew. And so you will get to see our moderators, Jim and Karen Johnson from the previous Alamosa Cellars, which is going to be
Nice.
really fun in itself. Dr. Richard Becker from Becker Vineyards, Ed and Susan Aller from Fall Creek, Gil Bledsoe from Pillar Bluff, and Gary and Kathy Gilstrap from Texas Hills Vineyard.
That'll be fun.
Awesome.
Join us next week. It'll be really great.
Did you download Zoom on all of their computers for them? Everybody download Zoom now.
Yeah.
Right now. And I'm going to fix this Zoom Facebook connection like tonight. The last thing I want to end with is just some more shout outs. You know, a couple of us have mentioned some of the females that we and the women that we work with on a day-to-day basis or from our past. And so I just would love to ask you ladies to give another shout out or 2 or 5 to, you know, your team or other women in the industry that have really inspired you. So we'll start with Julie.
Okay. Well, I obviously have to start with my mom. We wouldn't have a vineyard without my mom. So Janine Kuhlken. I have mentioned, although that was in the previous iteration of our liveness, Carrie Emerson and Marissa Contreras, who have really stepped up to try to fill the roles that are necessary in this, you know, new normal that we're living in. And I guess January, I should shout out to January, who has made so many things possible for this association. We would be completely lost at sea without her. So anyway, big shout out to you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, Karen.
This would not be complete without making January cry.
A tear. Yeah.
Always.
A tear.
Always.
So my mentor has been my mother-in-law. So Meryl Bonarrigo, you know, helped found Messina Hoff with her husband almost 44 years ago. And so they've been great mentors for Paul and I as we transitioned the business, and I learned everything that she knew, and she continually questions and helps me, you know, continue to grow and try new things. And we love food and wine pairings, and who doesn't love food and wine pairings? I mean, but we love that. And it's been really neat to be able to work side by side with her. And so I have a huge blessing there that I can reach out and ask her any questions anytime. And she's there to see what's going on. And hopefully my daughter gets a chance to see that process of kind of hardworking women in a family business and understands what goes on with that. And so that's a great opportunity that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else, to be able to see that perspective. And I would echo Julie as well, that January does a phenomenal job. And so I know we talk a lot about, you know, working mom problems behind the scene too, but you know, there's a lot of heart and passion that goes into everything that y'all see for THCW between Lindsay and January. And we always appreciate it. And January kept me sane during my presidency. Julie was a great mentor during that process as well. And I convinced Jennifer to get in the boat, and look at her now. So it's gone really well. But we have a lot of really strong-willed, passionate women in the Texas wine industry, in the High Plains, in the Hill Country, up in North Texas, a little bit everywhere. You know, there is some woman there that is trying to keep everything as organized as possible in most cases, and really dynamic personalities that I love being able to see anytime that we can at symposiums or conferences and different meetings that we have across the state, or going to New York together. We're talking about that on Tuesday. We need to all go to New York again together and promote Texas.
Oh my God, yes, please. Somebody that needs support is New York.
Oh, so Lindsay Bayerwald, she would be another woman of Texas wine with TDA. So Lindsay Bayerwald as well does a great job from a state level to be able to help promote everything we got going on.
Hi, Lindsay.
Oh, is she here? Hello.
I don't know if she is, but she is. We are
what?
best friends, so she should see this eventually. Yeah, she's awesome. And y'all, she has a toddler at home, like
Yeah.
a toddler. Which we all have some older kids, which is really nice, but it's awesome. She's doing a great job. And Gina?
Well, I'll start as well with Angela, the owner and founder of Stonehouse, who gave me my first job in wine 9 years ago, and has given me endless opportunity and chance to grow and really learn about this industry and really really hopefully find a home. No more career changes. Hopefully find a home here in the Texas wine industry. And then the list is so long. All of you women on this screen for sure. January, Jennifer, Julie, Karen, you in particular, you're the one that got me on the board 4 years ago or asked me if I would be willing to try. So thank you to you getting me involved. But gosh, everywhere you turn, you've got women like Katie Jane or Lindsay, like you mentioned, or good friend of mine, Amanda, out at Flat Creek. Like, you just have example after example of women that are, it's agriculture. So I think traditionally it's been a man's world, but definitely an endless number of women to just look at, admire, and follow their lead and their example about how to navigate this Texas wine world.
And Jennifer?
I got a list.
Oh, I mean, I have to have a whole list.
You know the whole list. Well, I mean, first and foremost, at Vending Branch, I'm always thankful that I got the Brenda Young blessing to join this organization, and she's amazing, and Bob is amazing, and their daughter Allison, who is she just does so much behind the scenes. And then we're powered by women. I mean, we have an amazing team with men too, but we've got Elena and Martinez, who's our enologist, and our wine club manager, Susie, and Jennifer Cernasek, our direct-to-consumer manager, and Sarah Potter, who does our marketing, and our tasting room manager, Judy, and Krista, who's our executive admin, and Amy, who's in the cellar right now. So it's a lot of amazing, amazing women. And then everybody on this call in January, you're the sanity to, at one point or another, every woman on this call who had a leadership role and just keeps the ship running. And now Lindsay, who we couldn't all do what we do without Lindsay right now. And then I want to also mention Denise Clark, who, when I was still a reporter, and when she was working for Hahn, Texas, doing marketing and PR for the Texas Department of Agriculture, and now works with us in Texas Fine Wine. And she's just a huge, passionate supporter of Texas wine and Texas Wine Twitter Tuesday. And she's just been great. And then my just personal shero, Bunny Becker. So not to make us all cry, but I knew Bunny when I was still writing about wine, and just her passion about food and wine and putting grapes in the Texas Hill Country, and what they have accomplished as a family is just a huge inspiration.
Thank you, Jennifer. So you guys, I typed out a list. There's like 100 names on here. And you guys mentioned a lot of them. But for me, I have already mentioned Madeline at Flat Creek, who gave me my first job in Texas wine, just off of a couple of phone interviews, because I was in California and Idaho at the time. And she really took a chance on me, and I appreciate that more than anything. And then we've all talked about our Lindsay. You guys, she is about half of most of our age, but she is an sweet, like, old, kind soul. And she is the hardest worker, and she really watches out for all of us, and for me in particular, because I work with her every day. But she is really watching out for all of us. And like Jennifer said, we couldn't do what we do with THCW without her right now. So I'm really grateful to have Lindsay. I also have mentioned my mom. She taught me everything about wine and I wouldn't be in Texas wine without her. And so I just want to give a shout out to my mom, Paula. And then my last big shout out is to Katie Jane. She was the executive director of THCW. She's going to hate this. She was the executive director for THCW for years before me, and really taught me the ropes of managing an association, a nonprofit association, and all that goes into Texas wine across the state. But this list, you guys, I mean, there is Nicole and Rachel and Sarah and Alana and Marilee and Betty and Marissa and Alexis and Melissa and Paula and Laura and Sheila and Susan and Tracy and Sally and Savannah and Amanda and Sandy and Heather and Courtney and Denise and Nikki and Carrie and Livia and Frances and Casey and Donna Renee and Sue Lynn and Callisto and Cappy and Diana. Like, I could go on. And so there you go. Thanks. But there's Brenda Canada, and that was on my list with Mrs. Becker. And we're just really grateful for all of the women who have led Texas wine before us.
For sure.
Cheers.
Yeah. I will drink to that.
So cheers to you ladies. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we hope that you will all be back with us on the THCW page next Thursday.
And y'all all go be friends with January now.
Yes. All right. Happy
Definitely.
Thursday.